Today on the show, the pleasure of speaking with Doug McAllister. Doug is a pastor turned businessman with a good portion of politician thrown in, and he's also an author. Doug's career has been varied over the lifetime of the last 40 or 50 years, and his ministries took him around the world, including to Australia. He's also been the mayor of a local town of over 100,000 people, which took him to the halls of Congress where he worked with the nation's leaders. And his connections, coupled with his business experience, corporate restructuring, leadership development, and much, much more, had made him very, very attractive to Fortune 100 companies and local businesses alike. Today, Doug has a current role as the president of Paradyme Companies, a one-stop shop for private equity, and he is a natural fit for utilizing his last 40 years of experience making those around him successful. I'm hugely excited to have him on the show today to share his incredible insight and just his massive journey through life and different careers. But enough out of me, let's get him out here. G'day, Doug. Welcome to the show.
It's good to be with you, Reed. And boy, that introduction, I'm kind of embarrassed. It sounds pretty good.
Well, for those people who are listening in, we will cut to the chase. This is version 2.0 because we just had some technical issues. So Doug has been very kind to re-record this. So thank you very much, mate. But Doug, before we dive into today's show, do you want to rewind the clock and tell me how you made your first ever dollar as a kid?
The first one is a vivid memory for me. I was in school, I think it was first grade, in a little town, Claremont, Indiana, right outside of Indianapolis. And we were all tasked to do a fundraiser. And so I was going door to door, knocking on doors. That's back when a first grader could do that safely. And I was having absolutely no luck. I was trying to sell, I don't even remember what it was, to all the neighbors in the area. And I got to this one guy, I was very dejected. And I literally said to him, "You're probably not going to buy this." And he said, "Well, why?" And said, "Well, no one else wants to." And to my surprise, he bought everything I had. And I discover sympathy works sometimes in sales. And so I obviously over the years, I fine-tuned my sales approach, but that was how I made my first dollar right there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know I was actually on your show a few weeks ago, and you give me the sort of the cliff notes of your career, and I just gave the cliff notes just then in the introduction. But now connect the dots for me, because obviously growing up as a kid near Indianapolis to going into the ministry, that would have been it's a different career path that not many people take. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm a preacher's kid. My father was a pastor. And he entered into the ministry later, well, in his 30s, which is unusual. Typically, you're going to start a little bit earlier. And but that's what I grew up knowing, and I kind of went into the family business, I guess. And my education was all in the arena of the ministry. Although, especially in my graduate degree, it was focused on more of a small business type degree, MBA type discussion, but it was for the not-for-profits and for churches. And I did that for about the first 10 years of my professional life. And that took me in several states here in the United States. And I was privileged also to be able to lead a church in Australia for 3 years in the Brisbane area, Logan City, probably familiar with it.
Yes.
And I really, I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you, Reed. Some of the best people I have ever met were in that church. I really, really enjoyed that ministry. Beautiful country, and I really want to go back someday as a tourist so I can actually go and see most of the stuff I didn't get to see because I was working too much. But unfortunately, through the process, I ended up in a divorce situation, and I needed to take a break. So I took a sabbatical in the very early 90s and moved into that period of time where I had degrees, but in the wrong areas, in a period of time when there was a recession going on and no one was hiring. And so it was a very tough period for me. And I found different ways to try to make money and everything else. But I literally was virtually homeless for a period of time and had to battle back from that. And I did, and moved forward into business at that point. Eventually having my own business. It was called Glass Blasters, where glass is a blast and we're etching to serve you. And we would do, by this point I was remarried to the woman I've been married to ever since for almost 25 years now. Awesome gal. At least I'm prejudiced that way. But we put this business together, and it was a glass etching business, and whether it was on mugs or awards, trophies, windows, some of the restaurants you go into, you see glass etched artwork, and we would do things like that. We built that into a nationwide business. Sold that in 2004. By that time, I had been elected to office, and moved into a consulting role in real estate as consulting at that point while I was elected to office. And I was there and was able to have quite a few experiences on both the local, state, and national level, including the halls of Congress, where I had the privilege of being able to impact nationwide policy that way. And I would do it again. But by 2012, when you live your life front page, top full of a newspaper in politics, you think about what's going on in the world today. Trust me, I have intimate knowledge what that's like. And it was, for me, it was okay because I'm wired weird. I can handle that. But my wife having to watch that over the years, it was her turn. So in 2012, I retired from politics as mayor of Marietta, and I went back into my consulting, and adding into that the expertise of that, knowing how to dance in that space between business and government, because they don't do well together, and they don't talk the same language. And I'm bilingual at this point, and being very, very intimately aware of the processes of getting approvals, things for real estate and everything like that through the government process. I was called on upon Verizon Wireless as one of my major customers, and others that to come in and fix things. I was the fixer. A project, get a cell tower that couldn't get done in 6 years, I would get done in 6 weeks, and because of those relationships. And through all of that, everything I've said, that also gave me experience and opportunities to walk into corporations. They would bring me on to turn them around if they were failing, or if they wanted to grow and scale, to show them how to do that. I have an expertise in leadership issues and team building, and what it takes to take an organization from A to B to Z. And through all of that, I was approached by Paradyme to come on and do all of that for them in the retail investment space. And so it's been like a hand in glove fit for all. It's like, I almost feel like I was prepared for this, for all that other stuff. But it was quite a journey to get here. But I will tell you, without waxing too long here, is that the only way you do stuff like that is you don't quit.
Right. And in this, I know this is version 2.0, but I do ultimately and truly believe that it sounds like you've had a lot of restarts, and particularly coming out of the ministry, sounded like it would have been pretty tough to readjust to normal life. And I know you mentioned when in version 1.0, you're talking about, resilience and refusing to quit. How important is that to not only starting businesses, but just to keep going in life? Because it sounds like we would have gone through some pretty dark times back in those days to get yourself back, pick yourself off the ground and get back on the horse.
The Bible talks about this guy named David and this other guy named Goliath. And you have to face your Goliaths and stuff, and you have to make a decision. I'm going to kill that giant. And there's no other option at that point. It's once you decide the giant's too big, you've lost. And you can't let yourself get there. And so, not that I didn't have dark days, but when people see me today and see what's going on in my life today, they don't know about that. They need to understand that's where it came from. The resilience of saying, I'm just not going to quit. I'm going to kill that giant. There's no other option. I'm going to go through him because I got the spoils of the war at the other side. They need to understand that's how that works, and that they too can kill their giants if they just decide they're not going to quit. And I had to learn that the hard way, and I did. And that doesn't mean I still don't need to keep learning that, because there's more giants ahead, and I'm going to kill them too.
Right. No, giants, demons, whatever you talk about, it's the mental health when you go through some rough patches, that is tough sometimes. And for all of us to want, not only to reinvent, which is just hard in itself, but two, to obviously have some issues in the outside world that you couldn't control, like a recession, and having to face that and man up to, well, not man up to, but face it in a way which you don't feel like you're constantly being pushed down, or the constant word of getting said no to. No, we don't want to hire you. No, you don't have enough degrees. No, you don't have the right experience. No one's looking for someone in your caliber or your experience. So it's definitely a hard pill to swallow at times, but I think that the resilience piece definitely comes through in that little story. So thank you for sharing. I want to sort of shift a little bit into, you mentioned working with governments, and I know in the green room before we press record here, we were talking about planning commissions. And I've got it's near and dear to my heart because I've worked as a structural engineer across many different cities around the world, London, New York, here in Los Angeles. But talk to me a little bit about how you, as a business leader, but also working with the Planning Commission, how they go about making sure they're future-proofing cities, housing, infrastructure projects, because all that adds to obviously wealth creation with what we do as real estate investors. But it does start with government and urban planners and making sure there is an urban plan, map or some sort of idea that they want to go out and build over the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So how important is having a good planning commission in the local city municipality in order to make it thrive for future generations?
That's the $1 million question, Reed. Because I've been on both sides of the dais when it comes to planning commissions as well as city councils, and the only way the answer to your question is why I ran for office, why I went from the appointed planning commission to elected official, and it comes down to is that it is not just important to have a good planning commission and understanding how they think. It needs to be an entrepreneurial context. The bureaucratic mindset, that got good people in government, but when you get to the bureaucratic mindset, it's so easy to say no. And in many cases, in planning commissions too, is that it's the folks who are on the planning commissions don't have the expertise necessary to make the decisions that affect people's lives like they do. And I was one of them. When I first got appointed to the planning commission, the reason I was appointed because they hated the other guy, and there was only 2 of us applying. And so I got on the planning commission, and I didn't know what a general plan was. I didn't know what a specific plan was. I had no idea about anything. And now I was in a situation where I was making multi-million-dollar decisions about somebody else's life. And so I had to learn. I had to learn quick and move that through that. That's not the best model. I'm not suggesting that's the best model. But through the process of that, I was watching. A planning commission's job basically is to make a recommendation to their city council. And 9 times out of 10, the city council will accept the recommendation, but not always. Watching the process, how it went from a planning commission, which is basically supposed to be 1 + 1 = 2, to a political context of a city council. I'm watching that, and that's why I ran, because I was saying that has to change. When it gets to the decision-making process in the city, or the city council level, the political aspect that kicks into that thing just polluted the whole process as far as I was concerned. And my attitude was you had to have an entrepreneurial mindset for your city that started at the top and the city council. It had to go through the city manager and all of their people, be thinking entrepreneurial, which means let them fail, let them try something and let them try it. If they fail, great, at least they're trying. We'll figure it out as we go forward. And understand that time is money. To understand that when you spend somebody's money, it's as if you need to do it like you're spending yours, as opposed to you spending someone else's money. You don't really care about that. And putting all those principles in place to create an entrepreneurial mindset in government. That's why I ran, and that's why I spent so much time there, was to make that happen. But to your original question, if you are dealing with a city council that just doesn't get it, in my view, what I tell Paradyme, don't do business there. Just don't. There's plenty of other places you can do business. Find the ones who get it and do business there.
And it's interesting you bring up that point, because I've invested in been involved with development in Long Beach here in California, obviously New York, in London, in Austin, Texas, where I currently invest, but also in San Antonio, and looking at the different ways in which municipalities approach evolution of a city is really important, I think. And to your point of entrepreneurial mindset, if you don't have the right people in place who have a vision for you talk about a specific urban plan or the downtown specific plan, which is what are they going to do to the downtown center in order to make it to attract business, to attract spending, to attract customers, to attract lifestyle. It's completely changed. And if you don't have the right people pushing rowing in the right direction, I should say, it becomes very hard for a city to evolve. And that's where cities can really be caught up. And I don't want to go on a rant about it, but I feel like since the last recession in 2008, like take downtown Los Angeles for an example. Like, it wasn't the resurgence of downtown Los Angeles in the last 10 years. That ain't its first rodeo. It tried it in the 80s. It tried it in the 90s. It tried it in the 2000s. It wasn't until the 2000s that it started to evolve and, get the people in there to create this incredible thing that is now called downtown LA. The same thing goes for when I invest in Austin, and the difference between, say, Austin and San Antonio. Austin has an urban specific plan that was built back in the late 90s. And the reason Austin is what Austin is today is because of that planning over 20 years ago. And so understanding that as an investor is super important. The reason I'm sort of beating this drum and going on a little bit is because when you compare different MSAs and municipalities and where you want to invest, that's going to affect your investments over the long term. And making sure that you align with that is super important. So I just wanted to sort of stand on my own podium there for a second, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, you're 1,000% right. And I can, those of us who have the experience like you do in the investment world, when you're trying to interact with government to try to move things forward, so much of the risk reward version of these transactions is the government side.
Right.
And so you've got to figure that out. And so the only thing I'd add to what you said is that you've got to look beyond those plans. There's specific plans, those general plans, and you've got to. There's a certain point where do they have the political will to actually implement the plan that they have put in place. There's a city in this region right now I will not name that I get deals all the time. Folks wanting to do residential, multifamily, whatever else, and they want us to fund those deals in this city and stuff. In my own due diligence, which I'm mostly responsible for here, as far as underwriting, we are quite a few layers deep in due diligence on everything. And I'll go and I'll talk to the mayor, I'll talk to city managers and finance, because I want to know the boots on the ground. What's the reality on the ground? I know what the specific plan says, and they'll bring me deals that say, well, it's already been entitled, and. Well, I already know now because of my experience with that city that even if it's an entitled project, they will not let you build it. And they just say sue us, because they have had issues with the freeway being built that's caused all kinds of traffic, and they're blaming residential. And so they have a political problem because the residents are saying it's residential, therefore we don't want you to approve anything.
Right.
Okay, well, I'm not going to fix that for that city. I'm not going to be able to do that, but I'm going to fix it for my investors, and I'll say no to those deals. And that's part of, you got to get into that and understand and talk to those folks. Do you have the political will to enforce this plan? And you can find that out fairly easily, but you just got to be able to talk to them and speak the language, and that's what we do here.
Yeah, no, and I think you bring up a very good point that is the interface between policy, the public's best interest, and development and investment and business growth, and attracting the right type of people, and making sure all those different pillars are communicating. And it can be very, very tough. And part of what makes developers, and when I've worked for many developers, very successful over time, isn't their ability to think outside the box. It's actually the ability to manage the system and make sure everyone's talking to the right piece, which was my job for 4.5 years for a developer in Long Beach. And all I was doing was running around, making sure that one planner was talking to the other planner, that was talking to the city councilman, that was talking to the neighborhood council, and making sure all those pieces are together to say, okay, we've got together, now let's jump. And that's what takes the longest period of time, which adds the most amount of risk to ground up construction, and why ground up construction is so risky. But in saying that, back to my original point of, when you invest in a city, trying to have an alignment that they have a future. What does the future look like? And to your point, what does it look like beyond that? And making sure that people do have the best interests of the town, and that they have put some thought around it. Because that's, if you're going to invest in a city that hasn't even bloody thought about what's going to happen in 20 years' time, they're going to be sucked out the back when the big tidal wave of change comes. So, and that pivots into the next point that I want to talk about with you is you now work for Paradyme, or you're with Paradyme, and the private equity space, and bringing your experience in sort of conflict resolution from public and government into PE, and seeing the issues of there. But you also got some issues in the way that private equity is run in the industry as a whole, and how that's going to evolve over time. Do you want to sort of give me your thoughts and 2 cents on that?
Yeah, Paradyme, part of the reason I'm here is we're a little different. And that's by design. Our focus here is is of which part of this discussion plays into that we just had. Our focus is we want to reinvent the industry. We want to reinvent the space. I have been for years complaining that I don't have my flying car yet. We should have. This is 2020 for crying out loud. Why do I not? It still takes gas. What's up with that? And I always tell people that I blame trains. And obviously they say what trains got to do with all that. Well, the bottom line is, and I think you and I may have talked about this in the past, was way back when trains, they were their thing. They connected the East versus the West. They had the power, they had the money, and everything else. But today, for many cases, except for subsidies, they would not exist. What happened? And my position is, trains thought their business was trains when it was transportation. And had they understood what they were about, I'd be flying cars today, because they would advance the whole transportation discussion further. Well, that has to be for all of our businesses, but for Paradyme, our attitude is, what is our business? And it's not really just money. It's not just using these vehicles to earn more money for our investors and then for ourselves, and redefining that in a time, and this whole COVID discussion is really emphasizing that, is that we're discovering what our antiquated ways were compared to, what this remote working wasn't so bad after all, and the different aspects of forcing us into the 21st century. And we at Paradyme would like to take the lead in that. We're in a unique position. We're newer. And so we're not so entrenched in the old ways of doing things. And so we can look at things, say, is that really the best way of doing that? Is that the best way of taking care of our investors? Is that the best way of taking care of our friends? Is that the best way of doing business in this 21st century context? And so our goal is to really disrupt the industry. And when we talk about being a one-stop shop, that's part of that discussion, is we want to reinvent the way we do things.
Maybe give us some context to the listeners of what a private equity shop does, because people talk about, like, on the show, I haven't actually never have had a CEO of a private equity firm on the show. So maybe give some context of what it does, and what industries you're involved with in investing, and then maybe also some examples of what needs to change, like a specific, like, this is the problem with private equity today, and this is what I think the vision should be for the future.
Okay, private equity, the best way I can summarize it, and understand that when I came into this, I'm not a finance guy.
Right.
My whole area is scaling companies and moving them forward and those kinds of things. And just bringing that to bear. But I've had to, for the last couple of years, I got educated. And so I'm going to probably give you a definition that a private equity person who actually knows what they're talking about would be a whole lot more technical with. I'm just going to tell you the way I see it.
Sure.
So to me, private equity, what it comes down to is that you've got, in this case, it's real estate. You've got this opportunity over here, and you got folks who want to make money over here, and you marry them together. And you bring that equity in there. The equity part of that is when there's a project that needs to be built, it costs this much money. And the banks need you to bring this much money to the table, so they'll give you this much money to build it. And so the part that's called your skin in the game is the equity. And this over here is the construction loan. And so our job here, the very basis of that, is that we will arrange for the equity. We find investors who will invest into you and your project, which will qualify you for the construction loan over here. Now, where we're a little different here is we can do both. We do both the equity and we can do the debt as well. We love it when we do both of the same project. It works out better for everybody involved. But where I see the problems, and we're working to fix that here. We talk a lot about our underwriting process here. We call it a forensic process. Where I see the problems is that too many times, and I seriously don't want to disparage bean counters. I'm not one of those, but too many times the decisions are made just at the accounting level. And if the numbers look good, then they'll do the deal. So there's two problems there. If you're a firm and you don't have someone to do the research, you're going to base it just on the numbers, and you're going to get burned. Sometimes, hopefully, and your success is hoping that the number of times you get burned is less than the number of times you don't. Okay, so if you don't understand that there is a whole lot of other levels of underwriting that you've got to go through, some of which we've already talked about. You sit down with the government leaders. You discover, what don't you know about this project? so that if the sponsor hasn't been quite honest, you're going to find out what's going on. We've saved our investors millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars of risk because we found out the truth by talking to other folks. You go and you begin to do this multi-level, multi-depth version of underwriting on top of the numbers, then you get a better picture. And that, to me, I think that needs to be done better in this space, in the equity space. And in many cases, what we're finding that we're able to offer our investors and the family offices and those folks is they don't have the back office we do to be able to dig that deep. And so by us partnering with them, either through their investing or whatever else, we're able to give them a higher level of security. And it's my opinion that with real estate, along with maybe a couple other alternative investment aspects, that you can have a great deal of security and still have a great return as long as you understand how to do the process of underwriting correctly. And that's one of the areas we're trying to take the lead in the industry, is doing that better than anybody else.
Got it. And that's super important, because underwriting is what makes it, it's more than just the numbers, as you said. It's understanding the municipalities. And it sounds like you're involved with predominantly ground up construction. Is that right?
No, we'll do it all.
Okay,
we're looking at just
value add
assets, value adds, ground up. Our favorite asset classes are going to be multifamily. We'll look at that. The things that we would consider recession resistant. We still believe in there's places, example, there are places in this country right now that, in spite of all that's been going on, hospitality still kills it. Hospitality is, the hotels, the resorts, and we're heavily involved in raising about $20 million right now for a resort in this region, because we know it's going to fly because of what we know about the region. And so there's that aspect of it. But then there's industrial. We like industrial. We're looking closer at office now because of the way the folks understood all of a sudden remote working isn't so bad. How's that going to impact office? So we're looking at that real close. But if you look right now, even today as we speak, the stock market is, at one point, was up over 1,000 points. The jobs market had the steepest decline in May that's had since, I think, 1939. It went down 13+%. And I mean, there's all these signs that they said weren't going to happen that are happening. And so we're watching this and going, okay, as we're looking at all of that, our data scientists that we have on board is looking at that and trying to extrapolate from that. What's that look like for these asset classes? Because we have to know that before we push and put these opportunities out in front of our investors. It's part of our underwriting process.
And so part of what you want to bring with the disruption that you were talking about with private equity, besides the underwriting, what else is, obviously the underwriting acts as a full service back office, as you're saying, for the family office folks, high net worth people. What other elements are you trying to bring to disrupt the PE world?
Well, I'm not sure how much this is disrupting. The time is going to tell. But one of the other aspects of what we're trying to do here at Paradyme, I'm very focused on this because that's part, once again, I want to scale the company. I don't want to be a one-trick pony. Okay, right. Our thing is equity. We do equity. Yay. What about, no, not the rest. Well, we're focused. We'll do the equity side. We also do the hard money loans and the debt side. We want to be a comprehensive service, if you will, to our investors, so that, because that means you can package the deals a whole lot better and differently. We don't believe that you have to be the one-trick pony. Now, there's a lot of good companies out there that all they do is the equity side, and my hat's off to them. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. We're just trying to do it that next step better. And so we're doing the whole 9 yards. We even have our own real estate division and real estate professionals and such, and we have our own wealth advisory side of things. And so we're very, very focused on what we call service after the sale. We want to earn your investment, the next one. We want to earn the next one by how we treat you in this investment. And so part of that is that we have a whole division that's dedicated to spoiling our investors. So we're getting there hooked up with travel arrangements and restaurants and memberships in different clubs and access to the different things they might have access to and stuff, because we just want to take very, very good care of them, not just take their money and give them a return. We want them to, because among other things, we feel like it's the right thing. But on top of that, they tell their friends.
Right.
And that's marketing. We like that part too.
It's just kind of like being best in class, right? You want to have an experience that everyone loves and enjoys the process, because at the end of the day, doing business and investing should be fun, right? You don't want to do business with people you don't like, and you don't want to have to constantly be going through conflict. So having a firm or someone that you like to do business with and invest with, and there's a few perks and bells and whistles along the way, well, hey, awesome.
Well, when you keep in mind too that we're not dealing with just accredited investors. We're qualified for a Reg A Plus Tier 2 offering, and so we have our crowdfunding aspect as well. And so with that, we're dealing with accredited investors, and those folks are skittish. They're not maybe as sophisticated as those who have more to live, more to spend, or more to invest. But in both cases, we take the attitude that it's not budget dust they're giving us. This is their future. This is their retirement, and we want to take good care of them in that process. So we're taking care of both those, accredited and non-accredited investors, and we want to treat them with respect.
So how do you find all your investors these days? Are you doing a lot of online marketing, or is it through referrals, or is it a bit of both?
Yes, it's both. We do a lot of marketing, a lot of social media marketing. We find that's the place to be: LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it. We do a lot of that, branding through all of that. But it's one of the things that the CEO Ryan Garland and I are mainly focused on is the networking with the high net worth individuals, family offices, ultra high net worth individuals. You'll see. I haven't been involved in this, but you'll see our CEO in Dubai. You'll see him in Monaco. You see him working with those folks. We do a lot of networking. What we're doing right now is through the podcast. I do a lot of podcasts. You do a lot of podcasts, and I look at that as a networking tool. And I get to meet a lot of extraordinary people along the way, and we find ways that we can help each other out and do those kinds of things. So they'll do a lot of that, and we dabble sometimes from the standpoint of our sales side, with regard to the crowdfunding and getting lists and getting connections that way, so our folks on the phone can make the phone calls. But we've been finding that we're patient. The more patient way that is just to develop the relationships and help each other out, and that helps us find a way into each other's networks, as we do a lot of that.
Awesome. Love it. I guess before we start wrapping up the show here, is what's the future got for Paradyme in 2020 and beyond?
Well, we believe we're going to kill it. We really do. We are seeing, during this time with the COVID and stuff, that there was kind of a pause going on. It didn't really slow us down that much, but it allowed us to just keep packing the pipeline. And there is so much interest right now in investing. There's so much dry powder out there, and earning the ear of that investor it takes time, and developing those relationships. But we're getting closer and closer to where they're starting to see there's something different about this company, and we get the opportunity at that point to pitch them on some deals. And we're opening 3 funds right now, looking at a $300 million distressed asset fund, like a $100 million debt fund. We already have our $50 million Reg A that is in place at this point, and plus on top of that, specific funds for specific projects. There's a lot going on right now, and part of my job is to keep all those plates spinning. And every once in a while, somebody else put another one over there. Where'd that one come from? I got to keep that one spinning. But we want them all spinning in the right direction, and we just see some good days coming for our investors here at Paradyme.
That's awesome. Well, mate, I wish you all the best of luck, and we probably should talk offline about some private deals that we've got going on as well. But at the end of every show, we like to dive into the top 5 investing tips. It's a lightning round. You ready to get into it?
Sure.
Mate, what's a daily habit you practice to keep on track towards your goals?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
What's a daily habit that you practice to keep on track towards your goals?
Every day, I have certain things I do every day with posts to LinkedIn and connection requests, and there's just a whole list of things I do every day, and without fail. And then then the other things get added to it. But those are the things I make sure I have a very, very structured list of things that I do every day. Just keep biting at the apple.
It's one small step at a time, right? Just keep walking over. Question number 2 is, who's been the most influential person in your career today?
I don't mean to sound weird here, but it's been God. From day one, it's been that, and that is why I believe I'll kill every giant in front of me and such. And on top of that, then the most supportive person I've ever had is my wife. She has just been there for me. So you put those two things together, and I don't think I can lose.
Good winning combination there, big fella. Question number 3. In your business, what's the most influential tool? And when I say tool, I could be a software that you use every day, or it could be a physical tool like a phone or a journal. So what's the number one tool that you use in your business every day?
Software-wise, I'm very big into LinkedIn because I'm very much into networking. And we use that every day. I build that every day. I have also found doing podcasts has been extremely beneficial. I've met some incredible people. I met you this way and such, but developing some good business relationships that way. I would say the tool that there's a combination that probably are the secret sauce for us. One is computers, technology. Use it. Find a way to take. I'm looking at blockchain right now. I'm looking at all those things right now to see how we can advance the company. But then there's also yourself.
Yep.
You got to understand your skill set, and what you can't do, you find somebody else who can do that well, and you put that team together, put those two things together, and you have a better chance to be successful.
Love it. No, it's a good answer. And I think having that mindset of wanting to evolve over time is very important as well, coupled with all the other tools that you use on a daily basis. Question number 4 is, what has been the biggest failure in your career? What did you learn from that failure?
Biggest value?
Failure. So what did you fail
failure.
at? And then what did you learn?
Sorry, I haven't been in Australia for a while, so I'm
my Aussie accent.
The biggest failure in my career? Yep. I can choose from several here. I'll use one. I moved to this region I'm in right now. It's the Temecula-Murrieta Valley here in 1987. Been here for a while, back and forth, but mostly here. And I moved here because I knew it was going to explode, and I didn't buy any property. I didn't take advantage of what I knew was coming. And it was a short-sighted. I was here. I don't know what I was thinking at that point. And it was, and I've looked around, and what has happened here in this region has been off the charts. And had I been more foresighted then, I'd be in a much different situation today. And it has been one of the lessons I've learned is that don't be thinking like this. You got to look further out. You got to look and see outside the box and see what's coming, and get really good at prognosticating and then acting on what you think is going to happen.
Right.
I learned that back then.
Yeah. No, I think it's hindsight 2020, right? It's a little bit of it can be a slap in the face sometimes, but it's
our investors expect us to, so I'm going to figure that part out.
Mate, last question before we end here is, where do people reach you to continue the conversation? They want to be in your sphere. They want to find out a little bit more about what you do. Where do they go?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Just Doug McAllister. It's Paradyme. You can find me there. That's probably the easiest place to do it. And through that, they can reach out, message me. I'll give them my email, my phone number, whatever it takes, and we'll have those conversations. They can come to the ParadymeInvestments.com. If you see behind me, it's spelled weird. I don't know really why they did that. That's before me, but it's Paradyme Investments.com. They can find us there. Love to have that discussion. And I will tell your folks there at the same time that anybody that's coming to talk to me, I'm probably going to talk about this guy named Reed because we didn't get a chance to talk about you very much in this situation, but the things that you've got going and your history, and then I want to get a hold of your book. I want to read that story as well. Folks, this guy's got the experience you're looking for if you want to really do well in investing in real estate. So we didn't get a chance to talk about you, but we're going to do more of that maybe in our next podcast on my side.
Yeah, mate. Well, look, thank you. Thank you for the props. The show isn't about me. It's about giving highlights to people like yourself. So thank you so much for jumping on the show today. I just want to quickly reflect some of the things that I took away from today's show. I think the big thing, is resilience. You have gone through many waves and iterations of evolving yourself, going to the depths of despair, picking yourself back up, reinventing yourself. I think reinvention is another really important word. But the never giving up and having that hope and that vision that this is going to continue to get better, which has then helped you, I think, also have a different mindset. You spoke about the transportation industry in the trains, and they're not in the train industry. They're in the transportation industry, and looking for that. And how do we evolve, and where the flying cars at, and how to apply that to the private equity world in order to be the best in class. I think that is a very important mindset to have, because if you lose focus of that and we get too focused on the numbers or just staying still in our lane, we're going to get sucked out the back when the big wave comes. So I think those are the couple of big takeaways that I took away from today's conversation. Did I leave anything out?
Well, I just want to encourage folks. One of the things I didn't bring up earlier to drive the point home, and this is not to seek sympathy, this is to drive the point home. There's folks who are going to be watching this who are focused on their careers, who are focused on their investors and their investments and things, and you know, they're maybe going through it right now and such. One of the challenges I had in the middle of everything there was my eldest son was killed in a car accident in the middle of all of that. And, you know, I will tell you that I've seen the worst life can throw at you, but I can also tell you, and I mean this with all my heart, that if you will not quit, if you will keep moving forward, some days taking just that one more step, but if you'll do that, you will never regret it, and you'll be amazed at where you can go in life in the process of that. And you can take all the worst life has thrown at you, and you can turn it into the best. And I never want to go through that again. That was horrible, but I can guarantee you, if you do not quit, there's no limit to what you can do. That's my encouragement. Everybody's watching this right now.
Well, mate, I'm super sorry for your loss. It's loss is hard. I've had some personal loss in my life as well. Both my younger sister passed away when I was 11, and my mum just passed away 2 years ago. So it's I know where you're coming from.
You know what I'm talking about then, don't you?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And it just goes back to, you know, when you are at the rock bottom, just realizing that you've got a roof over your head, you can take another breath, you've got the next day, that the sun will rise tomorrow, and putting it all in perspective, I think, is really, really important to help you get back on the horse if anyone is struggling out there. So, mate, super inspirational podcast today. Again, thank you for taking some time out of your day to jump on the show. Enjoy the rest of your week. As they say, wash your hands, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks for having me, Reed.
Well, there you have another cracking episode jam-packed with some incredible advice with Doug, and he is just a wealth of knowledge. So please do connect with him on LinkedIn or any of the social media platforms. It's Doug McAllister. Make sure you also go out and check out Paradyme.com. It's an interesting private equity firm that is doing a lot of different interesting stuff in and around Southern California, but also across the nation. I want to thank you again all for taking some time out of your day to tune in to continue to grow your financial IQ, because that's what we're all about here on this show. If you do like this show, the easiest way to give back is giving it a 5-star review on iTunes. And remember, we're going to do this all again next week. So remember, be bold, be brave, and go out and give life a crack.